Welcome to the What's Up Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host, Matzenheiner.
Better red than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Tell a friend about us. Tell a family member about us. Don't tell anybody involved with this movie about us. Just fucking don't. There's nobody I want to hang out with from this movie. Maybe one person, but we'll talk about it in a minute. Yeah, so we're on week 5. Before we get into that, though, go check us out on Patreon at What's Up Verdict. We have a lot of cool shit there. You can vote for free. You can also pay a little bit and vote and watch other extra content or torture us if you pay a decent chunk of money. Not that bad, though. But you can really put
cancel
Netflix
and go to the What's Our Verdict Patreon.
There you go. Like you could subscribe to us twice and still probably not pay what you're paying on Netflix. But no double dipping in the making us watch shitty movies. But anyway, we're back to it. We're on week 5 of Brad Pitt September. Man, I missed the alliteration. But yeah, so we're kicking the week 5 off, the final week off with World War Z. It was released June 21st, 2013. It was written by Matthew Michael Carnahan, Drew Goddard, and Damon Lindelof. It was directed by Mark Forster. It stars Brad Pitt, Muriel Enos, Daniela Cortez, James Badge Dale, Ludi Boken, Matthew Fox, David Morse, Elias Gable, Peter Capaldi, Ruth Nega, and then the rest of these names I'm not even going to try to say. So, yeah, there's a lot of people in this movie that I always forget are in this movie until I watch this movie. It's about a former United Nations employee, Jerry Lane, who traverses the world in a race against time to stop a zombie pandemic that is toppling armies and governments and threatens to destroy humanity itself. That was a very dramatic synopsis. But yeah, World War Z. Mattson, this was your movie, my friend. So
yeah, I picked this one because I knew that it was when we were looking at Brad Pitt movies. I was like, well, the only one I really cared about was doing one of the Oceans movies. And there's a bunch of these other Brad Pitt movies that I'd never seen before. Knew we were going to want to do something very different than those. When this movie came out, I just remember, man, we were so fascinated with zombie stuff for like, I don't know, it was like a 10-year run. It's not that we're not these days, but there was all kinds of The Walking Dead to what was the one with Will Smith that the name escapes me?
I Am Legend.
I Am Legend, and there's probably 28 Days Later and all that stuff. But all the zombies, slow, dumb, and not that these zombies were smart in this one, but they were fast and it was different. And this movie stuck out to me as much as Brad Pitt's terrible hair stuck out to me in this movie as well. I think it to me, this movie's a fun journey in terms of what that era symbolized for like the zombie-esque movies, but it just sticks out to me because it was a little bit different than the others. And I like Brad Pitt in the movie, but it's certainly not his best movie, but it was compelling subject matter at the time. I just wanted to throw it because I thought my co-host wouldn't appreciate this movie for what it is. It's not like I think it's an amazing movie, but I just wanted to piss them off, so I had to throw it back.
Fair enough. Alec, what about you, man? What about you?
It worked. I fucking hate this movie. And the reason why I hate it, well, there's several, but the biggest one is it almost feels like because this movie's based off of a book series. It almost feels like the author was a bit of a dick. And so they said, okay, well, we're just going to fuck up your story in many ways because there's so many just weird holes, things that don't make sense in this movie that are just like the biggest one. What the fuck did Jerry Lane do for the fucking UN to where now he's got superhuman Jason Bourne, Jack Reacher-esque skills where in a zombie attack, the first thing he does is count how long it takes someone who got bit to turn? No. And that's like in the first 10 minutes of this movie. And there's just so many egregious things. So yeah, fuck you, Matson. I hate this movie.
Matson has succeeded. I don't love this movie, but for very different reasons, and yet on the same lines. So, have either of you read the book?
No.
So, this book, there's nothing in this movie that is about that ties to this book except for zombies. Like that's it, because the book is about it's post World War zombie. It's the post zombie war in the book, and it's told through interviews that the author is supposed to base. He's not like Brad Pitt's character. He's like he's an author. He's basically it's a version of himself, and he's doing interviews with people that survived the zombie war and getting their opinions and their perspectives on the war and what they went through and things like that. And it's one of those things where the book is amazing because it touches on a lot of human nature and society and like how we respond to crises and how we, you know what I mean? Like it's an interesting storytelling device that this book utilizes to get through it. My struggle with this movie is that unlike the last one where the movie I think is better because I read the book, this one is worse because I read the book, because I'm like, I want to see the stories that we hear in the book. I want to see those. I don't even think it's been a long time since I read this book. I don't think any one of the scenes that we get in this movie comes from the book. I'm pretty sure this is all meant to be like a prequel, basically, more or less, to the book. And I think knowing that they had intended to do a trilogy of these movies, that's probably the intention. Here's how it started, and then we'll go into in second and third movie the actual stories, and then probably the wind up of the war being over, and we see these interviews happening. But this movie has absolutely nothing to do with the book other than the fucking world gets crushed by zombies and they go to a war with zombies, right? So I struggle with it. I will give it one thing, is I do love the fast zombies. That's one thing I did like about 28 Weeks Later. Like when you get those zombie hordes that are moving faster than like The Walking Dead, where like I could trip and fall and get my fat ass up off the ground and still not have them catch me. Like, I'm like, why are we afraid of these zombies? Like, other than when there's like 100,000 of them, what do I give a shit? If it's two of them, I could jog backwards and not get caught. So what do I care? This movie's very different, and I love the idea of zombies that are like fucking feral and fast and jump. I also love the idea, which they do touch on in the book, that the zombification and the actual disease, what creates it, is a living organism almost. And like once it gets into a human being, the reason that they're going after is not to eat, but to spread the virus, right? Like that's what a disease is and what it does. And I love that concept of the zombieism, if you will, and the fact that they actually talk about it versus like, well, they're just fucking flesh eating human beings that don't have a brain. Get the fuck out of here. No, like I love the idea of the organism, the disease within them is forcing them to do it in order to spread it. And then I love the caveat that it's like, well, they're not going to fuck with sick people because it's not going to survive, right? Why would we mess with that? So I love that concept. Outside of that, like the CGI is horrid. Like,
oh
my
gosh,
one of my favorite parts of this movie that I wanted to be so good was it in Israel when they're climbing that wall, they're climbing each other to go up that wall. That's such a sick fucking thought and idea. And you see it later again during the war scene where they're the flamethrower guys on the roof. Like, I love that shit and the idea of that, but it looks so terrible. The CGI was so horrible that I'm like, it lost me, because I was like, fuck, dude, that arm, that just doesn't, I could do better. Like,
my favorite is the wave of zombies that just melts into itself.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's so bad.
Stupid. I hate it.
That scene could have been really awesome because that whole, like, they're going in Israel, and then the moment you start to hear that crowd, like the chanting, you're like, oh man, what are you doing? And those big walls are like, oh my goodness, you're like, terrifying. But it could have landed a lot better for sure.
Yeah.
But I like the scene at the beginning and the scene in Israel where they do like the rush of motion, like the people running by the car, like all that, and you're like, you feel like you're in it, and then they kind of freeze frame it a little bit. I enjoyed that imagery because it like you said, Jay, it was just so different than the other ones where you're just like, okay, I'll just stand here and you can take 5 minutes to get over to me because you're limping along. But what is it about zombies that have fascinated humanity so much? Is it because we know what rabies does to animals and we're like, man, like if it's somehow mutated in human beings, like it could happen to us or something? Because we're clearly fascinated by this topic. I've always just wanted to ask you guys what your thoughts were on that.
Alec, I'll let you dive in first.
I think we're programmed for it.
Okay, wait. This is why I wanted you to go first. The fuck do you mean by that? Like we are programmed to become zombies, or we're programmed to be fascinated by it? And who the fuck programmed this?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
But I think it's the idea, right, that a little bit the romanticized idea of it, right? A zombie apocalypse. I don't have to go to work tomorrow. Like I'm gonna die, but at the same time, you know, it's cool because I'm not missing out on anything, right? Like it's I'd be that homeless guy in this movie that's just chilling on the side of the road with this, you know, brown paper bag full of stuff. But yeah, I think we're conditioned or programmed into it.
Interesting. He was the first one. When you talk about the drunk guy drinking out of the paper bag at the beginning, he was the first one. I was like, why didn't they mess with him? Because he's already dying.
Yeah.
I get it. I think for me, I think it's I'm going to go a little deeper on this one. I think it's a religious based thing. I think that there's this notion of the resurrection, right? And you want to go down that road. Like if you think about that and you take the mystical nature of religion, right? The fact that there are unexplainable pieces of religion and but then you think about resurrection, how the fuck would that work? You know what I mean? Like, does this body just like, it's there and then we're back, or do we rise? So I think there's some of that that's ingrained in it. And so people have this fascination. And then on top of that, I think there's an additional fascination with living forever. And like, what does that look like? And I think some people have got it in their minds that the zombification of human beings or anything, because it does take place to a certain extent in nature, like it's hard to ignore the fact that in some level it could happen to human nature. Like that's why I think for me, I enjoy, like when we talk about zombies, like not only the video game is fun to play, but like The Last of Us, that they took something that exists in nature in real life. You can see that shit on a daily basis of this cordyceps virus taking over bugs and other small creatures and forcing them to do things, like becoming their mind, right? Like I think that to me is so interesting that there's something in nature that does that. And the only thing that keeps us from having that happen to us is our natural body temperature is too fucking hot for a fungi to survive, right? Within us. So it's like, it's one of those things, but it's so close, fucking 5 degrees south, and we're fucked, right? Like it's one of those interesting concepts that it's not so far out of the reach of believability that we then become obsessed with it because we're like, well, what the fuck if this actually happened, right? So I think that's where a lot of that comes from.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think we have examples in nature that have shown us like, well, it technically could. You even look at what would happen with COVID and how like starts to shut down infrastructure. And that wasn't, people weren't attacking each other. We were just afraid to breathe on each other. And you just take that and multiply it by the moment someone starts to prey on someone else. Like, oh yeah, the pandemonium just kicks off and gets nuts. And this movie just makes you think about like home preparedness and food and have guns and all these things. But then you see stuff like that. And I always say this in like post-apocalyptic movies. I'm like, I ain't cut out for the survival, man. As long as I'm dining with the people that I love and we're all gone and I'm like, I'm not leaving them on bad terms. Like, what are we living for here? Like you're gonna have no, like essentially no electricity. You're not gonna have, I'm not watching football. I ain't playing Rocket League or Frosthaven. I can't watch movies. We ain't doing this pot. None of that. We're going back to good old 19th century, but worse because you can't go outside, and JJ's not going to have AC. He's going to be a grumpy fuck, and you're going to be eating like potatoes that you grew out of your backyard and hope you don't die when you go out. Like, I don't know. It just sounds horrible to me. Like, once you get past all that, like, it's not glorious. I don't need to be one of the people to carry on society at that point. Like, look, I believe in the afterlife. Hope it's true. And let me hold on to that, because otherwise I'm like, hell no, man. Like, let me go.
That's fair. There are a lot of things I would be okay surviving. Zombie apocalypse isn't one of them. There's way too much running for me to have to do, for me to be comfortable with surviving in that world. I'd be like the friggin' soldier. I'd be like, well, I got this one, boys. I'm out on it. And that, just so you know, is my favorite part of this movie, is like when he's at that base with those soldiers, and those guys are fucking amazing. Like, I love those guys, because they just walk in and he's trying to be this investigator, right, that he was with the UN, and they're like, we got nothing for you. This guy was doing dumb shit, so he got fucking shot. Then we burnt the fucking shit because we didn't want to deal with it anymore. Oh, the files were in that room. They were just a casualty of the fire. Yeah.
Colonel, he's there.
Yeah.
not gonna get much out of him.
His finger's still twitching, but that's about all you got. Like, that shit was fucking great. I love that whole fucking scene. He's just like, all you got to do is fucking pedal, dude. Like, what is your problem? Yeah, those guys were my favorite part of this movie. That, and the fact that that they had Peter Capaldi playing a Who doctor. Come on. How fucking, he only took that shit as a joke. He's like, okay, I'll go do this because I'm a Who doctor instead of Doctor Who. Every time I watch this movie, I laugh my ass off the whole time he's talking, because he's literally credited in this movie too as Who doctor. Like, that's it. He doesn't have a name. He's just the WHO doctor. I was like, that's beautiful. Somebody has a wonderful sense of humor to bring him into this movie in that role.
That's golden.
Yeah, great stuff. If you didn't know, he played Doctor Who for a very long time.
Good job, JJ.
I know. There are people who don't even, like, somebody was telling me, they're like, what's Doctor Who? I'm like, oh God.
Oh boy.
I was like, Howard.
We don't talk to those people.
Yeah.
So I will say, even though I do not like this movie, there were a couple things that I was like, that was like a cool spin, almost to Mattson's point. Or like, they do a good job in moments, a few moments, showing you like how serious this is that some of the other zombie movies don't do a good job of. And so you have the scene where they're, ransacking the grocery store, right? And Jerry pops the two guys that are going after his wife, and then a cop runs in, and Jerry's all ready for, like, surrender the gun type of a thing, and cop not even got the blinders on, is going straight in, and that kind of gets you going, like, just how quickly everything is gone to shit, and how nobody cares, and just so there's a few like really cool snatches of brilliance in there. And I like, the other part that I really enjoy is the idea of hunting for patient zero, but there's no like magical miracle solution or even find it. It's almost a real progression of go here. Oh, we can't fucking help you either, we'll try this. And so it's that kind of futile hunt of trying to figure out where this started and not being able to get there.
Yeah. It's very clever.
The airplane scene, terrifying though.
See, no, I got a problem with that one.
Oof.
And it's a similar problem to what I have at the CDC or WHO, wherever they go to. Like this fucking zombie who climbed over a wall to get into Israel and just go for broke for people is just casually hanging out in the plane, just waiting until they're conveniently almost to the UK from fucking Israel.
Well,
that's not a 45-minute flight.
Yeah.
That's
no. It's a long ass flight.
It's like 16 hours, and the zombies just chilling.
No, that's true. Though.
Waiting for the opportune time.
This is the second time I've seen it because I remember seeing them like, how did this happen now? Like they are already in the air for a while, and that's the fair point. Like I liked it, that I like how tense it was, but the origin of it doesn't quite. How did they make that add up? Maybe they don't completely go off. Yeah,
it's that's why I was like, it's almost like a fuck you to the director or the author of the book, because the same thing, like when they're in the facility, right? You have this cool kind of like, sneaky round kind of scene, and then it all goes to hell. So you have a really cool chase scene, right? But these zombies who we've literally seen like dive bombing to get after a body of flesh and blood are stopped by a door.
Oh yeah, they stop it. Yeah, I see.
It is open the door real quick. They come in, close the door real quick, and then they're just like tapping on the glass like Walking Dead zombies until it's convenient for them to chase a soda can. When we've seen that they still kind of like have a brain in the sense that they have direction. They've seen people go across the bridge, like they know there's people there. If they can run across the goddamn fucking desert to pillar up in a wall, and so there's all these little things where it's like, that was stupid, because you could still have the plot points happen without needing it. Like you could still have a really cool plane scene and not have to be like, oh yeah, this zombie was just snoozing for 14 hours that they were in flight.
Well, all they have to do is, and I think this is the implication, right? Like they show the plane getting ready to take off and it's driving down the runway and there's zombies getting relatively close. All you have to do is do an under the plane shot of a bunch of zombies getting to the wheel of this plane, right? They're not big enough or strong enough that they're going to fuck up the wheel, but they could certainly, the way that they just grab a hold of shit and run onto stuff, and they show that a lot in this movie. You just show one getting caught up in the wheel as it goes up. Now, that removes the whole scare tag, the jump scare of him coming out of the elevator, right? But it puts him in the plane, and with enough time that, one, you can't hear the shit that's going on in the fucking belly compartment. The luggage compartment, you can't hear that shit. So he could be down there fucking freaking the fuck out trying to find somebody. And then they've already explained, if they don't find something and there's no stimulation and there's enough noise in the plane, he's not going to be attracted to what's going on in the plane up there. So they go dormant. And at that point, I'm like, okay, now there's still the tricky part of this dumb shit's got to end up in the fucking airplane elevator, right? So how does that happen? There's a lot of coincidences to it, but you could have solved the unrealistic piece of where'd this fucking zombie come from in this plane by showing a bunch getting to the wheel. You don't even have to show it getting like pulled up with the landing gear. Just show them holding on to it and trying to climb up, and like then cut it back to the plane and you think, oh, they're safe. They made it. It went up, but he's in there. But I'm with you. Like they didn't take the time to fill some of these weird gaps in order to have a jump scare and then a very intense scene on an airplane. I have a bigger problem with the grenade throw in the airplane that takes out half like a side of the airplane. But I was like, dude, you're so fucked. Everything in that plane until the wall of that plane goes out is so compressed. And it's like that explosion is going to be scientifically twice as big because of the fucking cabin pressure in that plane. So for it to only blow out a chunk of the wall, like they would have probably, and I don't know enough to know for sure, but my guess would be that it would have blown that plane in half, and there's no fucking land in that bitch, let alone, at least not to the point that anybody survives it, which I also think is a little wild. Like the way that and good for them, they showed this fucking thing hitting the ground and the fucking nose of it fell off. And I'm just like,
all that you're like, are they dead?
He survived. So, yeah, there's some serious random ass shit. Well, and then this Israeli soldier who gets her hand cut off, like that knife is the sharpest knife on the planet. Because, listen, I have done some, not to human being, but I've done cleaning of animals before, and I have done it with some extremely, and I mean, you look at that fucker wrong and it'll cut your eyeball. Okay, sharp knife. You can't cut through bone in a swing. You just can't. And part of that comes from, we get this unrealistic nature of like chopping someone's head off with a sword in medieval times because we see it in movies. Wrong. That shit fucking got embedded. And it's funny because the one thing that they did get really right was when he fucking wails the one guy with the goddamn crowbar and then he can't get it out of his head. I'm like, that's realistic. You slam something like a knife, it would have got to her bone, and I don't care how sharp that was, it would have probably gotten partially through it and got stuck. It wouldn't have cut it off like he was fucking using a laser beam. That just like in one and you know how hard he'd have to, seriously, you'd have to swing that sumbitch so hard, and it would have to be the sharp, and he just went and it was done. I was like, nope. Not even if she was sitting on like some hard surface on the ground. And that's the other part that he does it out of midair. All that's going to do is knock her hand down, which means you lose all the leverage to finish that cut. Like, that was a magical knife. Like,
yeah. Now you think about it, Hollywood just does that in so many corners. Oh, explosions. And all kinds of things. And this movie has a lot of those things. I think you just have to like get sucked in and look past some of that. But that's also the problem with doing what we do is you get so hyper focused on something, because almost every movie that has action related to this, I mean, it ain't true unless it's like a John Wick style where they're like trying to be as true to form as possible. But even that's fake, because you're like, you know what? Someone's probably shooting him and he would have died 30 minutes ago.
Well, there's no such thing as a fucking bulletproof suit. Sorry. Like, even Kevlar fucking hurts. Like, let's be real. And he gets shot point blank so many times. Anyway, we digress. But like, I mean, you're not wrong. Like, realism in Hollywood is, especially like a zombie movie. Come on. Like, but there are some places where I'm like, wait, what? Like, every time I watch that scene happen, I'm like, hang on, you can't cut her hand off like he's going through has a hot knife through butter, and then in the next scene you can't get the fucking crowbar out of the dude's head. Like, you can't have it both ways. It's either you have magical weapons.
But why did movies let that happen though? Because they have people that like, they make movies, they know this, they're just like, the audience is dumb, or like it just looks cool and people aren't going to care enough, because that stuff happens all the time. There's like those discrepancies in like almost every movie you see. There's some movies that's so bad you're like, why did the director not change that? But it happens so much.
It's an entertainment thing. I think it's like, well, how do we make this a shock and awe type scene, right? Like, he's got 12 seconds. You got to have the hand cut off quick, and so we got to cut it off in a mere 2 seconds, right? So, and even then, if you think logically, like if he's got 12 seconds, he probably has less than 5 to get the hand cut off before it gets into the bloodstream enough to infect her. So it's like, I don't know. That's the only thing I think of, is it's always for the entertainment or the shock and awe of it, or like the, oh God, what just happened? But when you stop and think about it, I'm like, that's
makes me think of that one The Rock movie with called like The Tower or whatever, where he
where
jumped off a part of it, and they did like, there's so many videos of like the physics of like how far he jumped and where he would like what actually would have happened. It was so like just comically like, no, like I'm sorry, like never would have
for the bushes.
even for like the average fan, it was like, no, like no.
Yeah.
But again, then you just look at the like directors like, no, superhuman. Like, dude, I don't know. Movies that are rooted more in realism would be nice.
Because he's got a freaking what's the word? He's got a fake leg. Too. It's not even like
bionic leg.
He's not even like, he's like, and look, people with prosthetics can do some really amazing shit, but jumping's not really one of them. Not off of a helicopter anyway. Anyway, so it's just one of those things where I'm with you. Like, sometimes they have to make choices to make it look cool. But I have and I've always, even before the podcast, I'm like, wait, that's not okay. It looked kind of cool, but I just wish he would have grabbed her arm, slammed it on the railing right there, and then started cutting and make it 2 or 3 chops, and she's fucking miserable. But like, one clean right through the bone, not gonna happen. Anyway, I am just getting caught up in the details of this silly shit. But this movie, I'm with Alec. I think there's moments in this movie where I'm like, this is fucking cool. And then there's like, I'm like, what the fuck am I watching right now? Like, it's just weird. And then at the end, like when they're at the WHO, there's some serious intense moments in that when they're running through. And then the apex of this whole thing is him sitting in that freezer after injecting himself, like waiting. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm kind of bored now. Like there's no, and then we go straight from that into this dialogue, this voiceover of like, here comes the war. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about your war anymore. Like now I'm like so anticlimactic of this final scene that I'm just like, nah, Jesus. Stupid. I would have rather have been like this super intense chase to get them out. And they're freaking the fuck out in this room. And they're like, we got to make sure this works. And then they all inject themselves. And then like the zombies break through and then they recognize that it worked, right? So then they can go through and kill these zombies and then do the work of, creating this whatever disease or formulated modified disease that makes them invisible. But like, I wanted a bigger climax of the film than him giving himself a shot of some unknown incurable or like curable deadly disease that then he just walks out. Like just could have done it better. Anyway, that's my opinion. Should we rate it?
Let's rate it.
Kick it off, Mattson.
I'm gonna give this movie, I'm gonna give it a 3. I think for the time period it came out, in terms of zombie movies and what it represented, I think it was revolutionary, making fast zombies. And I think Brad Pitt's character does a good job moving us through the storyline. But as we talked about, there's definitely some holes in the narrative, and the CGI is bad. And in a movie like this, like it needs to be good because it's a part of the shock and awe of it all. But I think there's some great scenes. Like I'll always remember the scene of that child that crouches down, like basically on the floor while the zombies are running past it. And as JJ talked about, the concept of how this virus spreads and what it's doing is really interesting. It's different than all the others. And I think there's some certainly tense moments in this movie. And I think part of it kind of at the end presents like a video game, like you're kind of playing The Last of Us. You got to sneak around and make it happen. But as Jay just talked about, I don't think the payoff at the end is exactly what we were hoping for. And it's maybe because they were originally thinking they were going to do like a second and a third. And that might be part of the problem. And then it never got fast tracked again. And maybe that was part of it, because I would have liked to think they would have had a better climax at the end if they'd known, hey, we don't know if we're going to get another one. So let's make sure it's good. But it's a 3. Will I ever watch this one again? I've seen it twice now. Probably not. And I'm okay with that. But I think I enjoyed seeing it in theaters. It was fun to watch it again, but it'll just fade into the ether.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 2. I want to give it better, but then I also want to give it lower. It's one of those movies where it's like what I really hate, I really fucking hate. But what I really like is really, really good. And I do like the concept of the zombieism and how it works. And I like the idea. I've always enjoyed like a little more threatening level zombie than like the fucking barely walking type zombie. Even unless you have a bunch of them, you're never going to get overwhelmed in that situation. I will say, I don't know. Like I'm with you. I think I wanted a better payoff at the end. I want better CGI. I want to like it too because the book is so good. But I think the book, if they did what the book talks about, it would have turned into a movie that Mattson would have despised, because it would have been very slow and very character driven, because it's about the politics of the zombie war, like human nature and how people become shitty in the and we see a little bit of that in the, like what Alec talked about with the cop and like the city when it all starts to go to hell. And even in like Israel, like we see the other side of it, where this, what is typically looked upon as a nation that is very they're going to close their borders and shut everything down, and they're letting people in the midst of a very dangerous time to let unknown quantities of human beings into your city. But they're doing that. And he says that moment where he's like, hey, anybody we can save is great, you know? So it's like, they do have some of those political pieces or those human nature pieces from the book that they talk about in the book, but there's so much good shit in the book about how nasty we humans can be in the wake of tragedy and this shitty things. And also on the flip side, like how amazing and wonderful human beings can be in the same circumstance, right? Depending on your point of view and how you handle things and then the situation that you're in. So I wanted to see a little bit more of that. And again, to your point, maybe it would have come in movie 2 and 3, but they just didn't do a good enough job on this one for it to warrant 2 and 3 is what I'm assuming. But yeah, so 2 for me, I don't know. Like I said, it's one of those things, there's no in between in anything in this movie. I either fucking hate it or I'm like, that was dope. So it probably gets a little higher than my brain wants me to give it, but that's where I'm at. Alec, poo-poo it, my friend.
1.
There you go.
1. I will say, so I struggle with this one because you can do kind of, when it comes to movies, in my opinion, you can do whatever you want and you can break off a source material, but it's gotta be fucking cool if you do.
Yeah.
And this movie isn't as fucking cool as it could be. Like, I go think about the kind of the big moment, right? That climax where you're in the CDC and sneaking around. And then in comparison to like I Am Legend, where he's in the bank and he's got the cover of the flashlight going up and down. Like, that's at the beginning of the movie, right? That's what's setting you up. And to just compare like those two moments, like, well, fuck, one of them is really fucking cool. And the other one, when you compare, it's like, man, like it could have been really good, but it's almost like you got lazy, or you were relying on possibly a second and third one to really ramp it up, and so it falls flat. And then I also have a real problem with the timing of this, because another thing I really enjoy is this concept that he learns in Israel about the 10th man, right? His only job is if 9 other people agree. Like, that's a really cool concept. And then it spills into this fact that, oh yeah, we started building this giant fucking wall, by the way, when we heard about zombies in India. Right? But then I'm like, okay, well, what's the timeline of this thing? Because there's a lot of people in India, right? If outbreak happens there, I mean, you got a day, and it's snowballed enough to get out of control, and still, Israel had enough time to build a giant wall around Jerusalem and finish it just in time before this happens. And so you have this kind of, it's hard for me to nail down the timing of what's going on or anything like that, because it just doesn't seem to make sense. Or it's like, how did you prepare for this if your first clue that it was happening is already that it happened, and now you're fighting the clock, or all these little things. And so it's like, or, this communique out of this base in South Korea is like, it makes you think like, oh, we got this a day and a half ago. Yeah. Right. Or 2 days ago. But in this entire time, the whole world's lost or whatever. So it's hard for me to follow. And the moments where you could have made it really cool, instead you had stupid CGI waves of zombies that just crash into each other like water and not flesh. So it's like, oh, I watch this movie pretty frequently, actually, now I think about it. Like, I've seen it a good half dozen times, but it's a background noise movie. Yeah. And it's usually someone else has put it on. And so I can look up real quick, yeah, that's funny. The guy shot himself. The doctor shot himself. Who's going to fix the virus? That's funny. And then, go back to doing whatever I was doing. And so it's a 1 for me. I don't like this movie at all.
Fair enough. Certainly not the best pick of Brad Pitt.
No, well played, Mattson. Well played.
Definitely well played. I like
that
it.
hairdo for him too.
Yeah. He didn't really have a whole lot of wins in this.
No, not good. All right, well, there it is. Man, that's the end of Brad Pitt month. We're moving on to John Cusack month next month. But before we do that, Alec, tell everybody where we can find them, where they can find us. Wow.
Well, we can find you guys wherever you are. No, you guys can find us on YouTube That's the best place to find our smiling faces or our frowny faces or our pissed off faces when we have to watch stupid movies. Other than that, find us on Patreon at What's Our Verdict Reviews. Patreon, we put up categories every month for different movies that we want to do, sometimes based around actor, theme, genre, or just fuck with Matson month. That's one that I want to come back and circle back to. And so you can get involved there, vote on a topic, and then we select some movies that correlate to said topic, and you guys can vote again on which ones that we watch for the month. This means a lot to us, and bragging rights are always on the table, so go vote. Pick my movies, don't pick anybody else. I've had a couple stinker months. And then behind a little itty-bitty paywall, there is over 600 extra videos that range anywhere from bloops to outtakes to random conversations, all the way up to full-length episodes of movies that nobody should ever watch. Speaking of that, shout out to our current patrons, Rick and Charles. Appreciate you all. So join us. What's Our Verdict Patreon? Extra content, a little bit of paywall, but voting is absolutely free. So you can go join there, select the movies that we do and talk about and are forced to watch. And with that, I will kick it back to the Titan of Terror, the Sultan of Swat, a JJ.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Alec. Yeah, go check us out. You'll have a good time, I swear. Maybe most of the time. We're pretty funny a lot of times.
Yeah,
only when we're not trying to be, I think, though.
We're hilarious.
That's right. All right. Well, there it is. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagic out.